Oh, we're live.
Hey, we're live, everyone. Perfect timing. For those of you who have joined the technical escapades of Wajahat the Lead today, I'm referring to myself in third person as Incredible Hulk. You were on at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time expecting Allison Gill, but apparently I can't read, and Allison said, oh yeah, 1:30 p.m. Pacific Time, 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and here we are. And the timing, sadly, is auspicious and unfortunate because we just found out last 15 minutes that Donald Trump has escalated his crackdown and war on Los Angeles, which is a metaphor for the war on our freedoms and civil liberties, by unleashing at least 500 Marines. Yes, the U.S. military will be unleashed against fellow Americans for no reason whatsoever, because the LAPD has repeatedly said, as of yesterday, that the National Guard that were there, yes, the 2,000 National Guard troops, were making things worse. That, hey, we got this under control. We don't need you there. They said this even 2 days ago. Oh, thanking the protesters and organizers for a mostly, organized, peaceful resistance to ICE agents terrorizing LA. So Donald Trump has called it a rebellion, a riot, an insurrection, and now, in addition, 2,000 National Guards. We just found out 500 Marines. Folks, this is escalation. This is authoritarianism. This is a snapshot of what Donald Trump will do to the rest of the country. And my fear, Allison, is that this is going to be excused for martial law. I am joined by Allison Gill of Mueller, She Wrote, and the fantastic Daily Beans podcast, where you get a breakdown of modern politics with lovely curse words. Allison, I yield the floor to you.
Yeah, well, I don't know how you can cover the news these days without appropriate profanity. I'm here in California. I'm in San Diego, so I'm a couple hours
Mhm.
south of what's going on. But you know, uh, Attorney General Bonta announced at a press conference today that he'll be suing on behalf of California to seek an injunction from the court for the National Guard deployment. And now we have the Marines coming, actual active duty troops deployed against American citizens. This was all spelled out in Project 2025.
Yep.
They should have had that lawsuit written up and ready to go on Saturday, but it's getting done, and I'm glad it's getting done. They're threatening to arrest our governor, Gavin Newsom. And now this escalation of the Marines. Oh, and by the way, the National Guard, you should remember during the 2020 George Floyd peaceful protests when he called out National Guard from like 15 states to send to DC to help with the protests there, which were largely mostly 99.999% peaceful.
And
Um,
can I also one up you now that you went back to the 2020s? In the first administration, Donald Trump also asked his then Secretary of Defense, Mark Esper, asking Mark Esper said he couldn't tell the difference, why they couldn't shoot the unarmed peaceful protesters in the legs. And Mark Esper said, you can't because that's illegal. And Attorney General Barr and Mark Esper, both, none of them are heroes, but even they said that's a bridge too far. Just to let you know what Donald Trump wanted to do to those peaceful protesters when during his first term. Sorry, Allison, continue.
No, it's okay. But thank you for that reminder. And four governors said no, we're not sending. It's up to the governors, right? And that's why the Bonta has the ability to sue, depending on the authority. And the authority he's using here is bull. But can I say bullshit on here? Yeah.
You can say anything you want.
And so yeah, I've got to.
Allison said bullshit. I will say bull poo poo. Or in Arabic, as they say, a bullshit.
Oh, okay. Now
Yes,
I know how to say it in Arabic. Thank you.
yes.
But you'll remember the photos of the National Guardsmen in DC sitting around, no food, no water, taking naps in gymnasiums and parking garages. We have the same photos now coming out of Los Angeles, just tons of National Guard troops sitting around doing nothing because there's nothing to do. And now we're sending in the Marines. This is all propaganda. And I do want to say, I got an email from Mayor Karen Bass's office, and I shared this on Blue Sky to know your rights. And here's just a couple of them, if I may, Waj.
Please.
If officers ask you questions, you have the right to say, I choose to remain silent. You have the right to consult with an attorney before answering any questions or signing any documents. If you have valid US immigration documents, carry them with you. Never carry false documents and never lie about your immigration status. Actually, just shouldn't talk to cops at all. You should just say lawyer. And no law enforcement officer can enter your home without your permission unless that officer has a warrant signed by a judge. An administrative warrant from the Department of Homeland Security does not count. It does not give officers the right to enter your home against your will. So those are just a couple of things that the mayor wants you to remember as this administration, this regime is escalating this. This is not the people. But again, this was all spelled out in Project 2025. You brought up Esper, which is a really good point. That Donald Trump really wanted to be able to shoot people in the legs, I guess, because that's okay. And now he's got someone in Whiskey Pete, Pete Hegseth, who we call
Excellent.
Kegseth on the Daily Beans, or Keg Stand, depending on how you're feeling that day. Now he's got him in his pocket, and he's got the immigration czar or whatever, Tom Homan, who that's not an official anything. He's just a White House advisor. So this is scary. This is full on fascism, full on authoritarianism. I don't think we can any longer pretend that we're hanging on to democracy.
No.
It seems like it's gone. We can get it back. We can get it back, but it's a much bigger hill to climb than it was last year.
No, I appreciate that, and thank you for giving people some wisdom on how they should respond. Look, the regime won. And the reason why I say the regime won is because the dress rehearsal of 2020, January 6th, showed up in 2024. And this country, because it's addicted to white supremacy and greed and misogyny, decided to destroy itself by electing a criminal vulgarian because it couldn't stand to vote for a black Indian woman. And thanks to disinformation and corporate complicity and failure in corporate media and feckless Democrats, voila, here we go. And I said something, I think I messaged you yesterday or maybe 2 days ago, Allison, and you said, well, we tried our best to warn them. And what did you mean by that? Can you unpack that for our audience, that little aside conversation we had?
Well, it was a Sisyphean task as members of the independent media. We weren't just up against Donald Trump and his propaganda machine. We were up against the corporate media who didn't want to hear about it. And so we did everything that we could in leading up to the election in 2024 to tell everyone as loud as we can they are planning to do this. I have tweets going back, man, I have tweets going back to
We
2020,
got tweets.
2019, saying he's going to call this an invasion, he's going to call this an insurrection, and he's going to use that to invoke emergency powers so that he
Yep.
can unleash the military on United States citizens and perhaps even suspend habeas corpus so that he can detain his political enemies without due process. We talked about it. We held up copies of Project 2025 at the DNC. We yelled as loud as we could. And that message just didn't reach people. And what we're going to have to do going forward is to find out how to reach people with that message, but also how to formulate that message so it's not as wonky as some wonks would otherwise try to put into their messaging. This is pure straight up dictatorship, fascism, neo-Nazi
That's it.
stuff. And
Call it for what it is.
now they just put a 22-year-old guy in charge of
I was
domestic
going
violence extremism. The number one problem facing Americans as far as terrorism is concerned in this country, it's not coming from the 19 countries that Donald Trump has banned people from his Muslim ban 2.0. But he has learned from that first go round that as long as you have enough diversity in the countries that you ban, it can't look like it's prejudice or it's
You
sad.
throw it was, back in the day was a whole bunch of Muslim countries throw in a North Korea. Now they pepper it with
Hmm.
some South American countries, some Latin countries, but it's the same impetus to make America white again, even if it'll destroy us. And Allison, I think what will make people wake up. I think when it hurts their bottom line. Forgive me for being cynical about my fellow Americans, but I do agree with Gore Vidal when he said the quote, "United States of amnesia." And I think that the color green trumps all other colors. I think people at the end of the day only care really about themselves for the most part. LA, and you live in San Diego, my home state is California. I'm from the Bay. It's the fourth largest economy in the world. It's the most populous state in America. It gives more than it receives. The California economy gives $80 billion to the federal government, which then the federal government used to disperse to red states. Oh, to help them. But now, good luck. There was Josh Hawley begging Kristi Noem for FEMA help. Remember that? So you're going to go against California. Okay, go ahead. What you're going to go against is the economy, not just the California's economy, but the American economy and global economy. And there's a lot of folks who give money to Donald Trump in Hollywood, in Silicon Valley, of the manosphere that live in LA, right? Their business is going to be affected because if there's civil disobedience and Marines and National Guard, right, and resistance and protests, and I know eventually there's going to be sand in the gears, there's going to be chaos. And what we've already seen is people aren't coming to America, right? I mean, if you look across the board, folks, tourism from Canada, from Europe has drastically dropped. It's going to be about $12 billion worth of loss for America. And there's something called the World Cup. And one
Mm.
of the cities is LA. And there's the Olympics. And the Olympics are in 2028. So I think, Allison, you already saw the LAPD last night. The LAPD chief said, "You're making our life harder because we can't do our job because you're blocking the roads, and it's taking us 38 minutes to respond to actual 9/11 calls." So this is Stephen Miller, and this is Donald Trump. This is white supremacy and Festivus and caucustocracy. And where do you think the end game is here?
Uh, I don't know. I think we're all just like, I feel like we're all in therapy and we're all addicts and we have to take this one day at a time. And
Mm,
I felt like this during COVID. I mean, it's a real psychological thing where you don't see a future and it messes with your mind, right? So trying to figure out where this all ends. I mean, we're all just sort of sitting here like, well, we have to do the messaging and we have to have our elections and we have to flip the house and it's just a very helpless
mm,
feeling. And I just want to let everybody know that if you're feeling kind of helpless and powerless, that I get it and I see you. We see you. And I think the answer is and always has been. First of all, it's up to us. We need to stop relying on institutions to save us. We're actually here to save the institutions. We are the government,
that's
and
right.
we need to organize and yes, show up. I'm going to be doing a No Kings rally this Saturday. Showing up is important, but not just showing up, but networking and getting emails and signing up with your local indivisible chapter and making sure you're reachable so that when the call goes out for bigger and bigger rallies and marches, we're all there and we can all reach out and help register more people to vote. And I know a lot of people are like, well, are we even going to have elections? But I just kind of want to point everybody to see the elections that we are having and
Yeah.
we are winning. We did an incredible thing in Wisconsin. We showed that people are more important than money when we beat Elon Musk basically for a Wisconsin Supreme Court seat. We have just a lot of elections between now and then that hopefully will remind us that we still do have this power today. Even the DC Bar, Pam Bondi's brother wanted to be in charge of the DC Bar Association. And we got those election results. And generally, about 7,500 people vote in the DC Bar elections. This time, 35,000 people voted in the DC Bar elections. And the result is that Diane Seltzer, who was running against Pam Bondi's brother, uh, won 91-9.
Wow.
So now that, of course, isn't a national federal election or anything, but I think as long as we keep our eyes on that, that is what kind of buoys me. But where we end up,
Yeah, I'm and I have to be hopeful, but I'm a pragmatist. I think things are going to get worse before they get better. When there's actual reformation in this country, I probably won't be alive, but maybe my kids will see it. But I think things are going to get worse, folks, and we have to hold on. We have to hold on. I'm old enough that I went through it in my life, and a macro and a micro level. I remember it was 9/11. Spoiler alert, I'm Muslim. I went through the 2008 economic crisis. My parents, I've gone through it. And I remember this country lost its mind. This country voted for George W. Bush instead of Gore. The Supreme Court essentially handed it to Bush in 2000. And in 2004, Allison, I don't know about you, but obviously we wanted Bush to lose. But I went to sleep 100% confident that this country would vote for Bush. And I remember I was in law school and everyone was crying. And I mean, it wasn't that I was heartless. I'm like, you're just not reading the country right now. And then in 2008, you saw Barack Obama because this country's like, oh shit, these people lied to us and they stole our money. And now I don't have a home. And Katrina. So this is that times 10,
It
maybe
is.
100, because we're dealing with an authoritarian regime. The thing that gives me hope is the following. After I just said all that, which sounds very dystopian, because we have to prepare for it. In addition, there's climate change. The economy is going to tank. Musk, before he started kissing Trump's ass again, as of today, talked about recession coming in the second half. A lot of people have lost their jobs. Measles is going to spread. Bird flu. Our public health infrastructure is already gutted. They're going to gut it some more, right? It's going to be really bad, folks. But there's a lot of us. There's 340 million Americans. It's a really big country. And I don't think MAGA has realized this yet. I know they're celebrating owning the libs and they love the cruelty and the crackdowns, but they don't realize there's more of us. And California, my home state, it could fight back. And by the way, the institutions, they can fight back. And Donald Trump is going to F them. He's going to F their Medicare, their Social Security. If California goes down, these red states aren't given anything. They're taken. FEMA, there's a reason why Josh Hawley's begging FEMA for aid, right? Speaking about the FEMA, the head of FEMA is so incompetent, folks, that I mentioned this when I was talking to Norm, that two FEMA staffers said anonymously, they asked him, so what's your plan for, hurricane season? And he's like, oh, we have a hurricane season? He didn't even know.
Yeah.
And they were like, what? And so speak about because you talked about this, and I wanted to ask you about the incompetence, right? The cruelty and the incompetence, because let's ring the alarm bells about the cruelty that's at display right now. But also, is there a way out because they're so incompetent? I'll give you two examples. You already mentioned one, folks. The number one domestic terror threat in America is white supremacist right wing terrorism for several years in a row. Right, that's the number one terror threat. You've never heard anyone talk about it. I wonder why. The new counter-terror chief in America, the person to lead U.S. terror prevention, is 22-year-old Thomas Fugate, whose experience is being an ex-gardener and grocery store assistant. And then our Secretary of Defense is Pete Hegseth. And there are multiple stories coming out about Pete Hegseth. I think all these leaks are coming from within the White House. The latest yesterday being that you cannot find people to be advisors for Pete Hegseth because no one wants to work for him because no one has any faith in his leadership. Those two stories I give to you, Allison.
Oh wow. Well, first of all, if you want to check out Fugate's photo on LinkedIn, he's got.
Someone should take a screenshot of me and Allison just doing that is randomly.
It, okay. That's very attractive.
Well
Yeah.
done, well done.
Share
And
that
Steve.
widely. Yeah. Um. It's. I mean, we've seen this. It's we think like, oh, somebody's unqualified, that means they're perfect for the position because he wants to destroy these federal agencies and these institutions. But it's even further than unqualified. It's anti-qualified.
There you go.
And that's the only way I can think to frame it. And yeah, nobody wants to work with Pete Hegseth, and the White House is even like, you can't even have decide who your own chief of staff is, because that guy once hung out with a friend who knows Joe Biden's daughter or something. Like, it's palace intrigue. It's reality TV, which is what they wanted, and it's the competency is the problem. And what we have to look for going forward, just like the whole we talked about this last time, the Joe Rogan of the left. There's these people are spending tens of millions of dollars to create a Joe Rogan of the left. You can't create that. It has to happen organically, and as is the same for democratic leadership going forward. You can't force that leader. The DNC can't take somebody and make them the leader that we're looking for. That leader will emerge as evidenced by how whoever that is responds to what is going on right now. and people will follow that leader. And that is how we look to the future to see who our Democratic Party leadership is going to be. I'm thinking of people like AOC. She's been out on the road with Bernie. She's bringing in tons of like huge, massive crowds. We think of Maxwell Frost. We think of Representative Johnson in Tennessee. We think of like just all of these incredible Jasmine Crockett running for oversight ranking member. We see all these amazing leaders that organically emerge. You can't make it happen. And I'm
Yeah.
kind of tired of people trying to mold a candidate and put them out there, especially when you're trying to reach more to the right instead of the 20% on the progressive side that are would love to join your team if you would just acknowledge the
Fight.
policies that they want to put into action. And but here we are with this kind of centrist way to move forward, and people thinking they can create a candidate in a laboratory, and you can't. It has to be organic. You can't get a Joe Rogan from the left. It's just it's like trying to, like, if I wanted to spend a bunch of money, I think I used the example with you to find the next George Carlin. Well, comedians become famous because they're funny
Yeah.
and people like them. uh, that's what we need to see from and it's ripe for the taking over on the left. It's pretty. When I took over the call center at the Department of Veterans Affairs over a decade ago, I said, "Here's the cool thing about your job. It's going to be really easy to be amazing because it's been shit for so long."
Yeah. I literally right before we pressed live, I said this. I'm gonna quote myself on Blue Sky. I said, "quote Here's an opportunity for a Democrat to emerge as the leader of the party and frontrunner for 2028. Here's your moment. We need fighters." And I had to ask you about this because you're in California. Gavin Newsom, the last day and a half, has shown some fight that went missing for the
Yes.
past 4 months. And now I had a message from a friend. I'm on some WhatsApps with some people who are tuned in. And one guy said, I don't like Newsom for a variety of reasons we can discuss, but at least he's fighting. And another guy said, Newsom's winning me back. And another person said, F Newsom. I remember what he did, going to the right, moving the Overton window, being centrist, platforming Charlie Kirk, Steve Bannon, throwing transgender people under the bus. However, we live in the United States of amnesia and people are desperate for fighters. And Gavin Newsom, as of last night and today, I'm sure you've seen some of his rhetoric. He's like, fight me, arrest me, Tom Hogan. Your take on Newsom right now and his role and his reemergence, if you will.
I actually put out, let me see, because this is so funny that you bring this up, because I said something right along the same lines. I'm like, look, I'm not the biggest fan of Newsom, but this is good.
Yeah,
Like, and most of it comes from him wanting to cap Medi-Cal at $2,000 and moving to the right, platforming people like Bannon and Charlie Kirk, and abandoning our LGBTQ plus community that he fought so hard for back in the day. It's like, look, I'm not his biggest fan, but right now I'm glad that he's doing this. I'm glad that he's saying, arrest me, come at me, bro.
yeah,
I'm glad he's getting together with the Attorney General Bonta to sue to get that injunction against Donald Trump sending the National Guard, and I'm interested to see what he's going to do about the Marines, the active duty military being deployed against Americans. That sentence just blows my mind. And when we think, well, how fast can it get really bad?
yeah.
It's June,
It's
and
four and a half months.
we have a deployment against American citizens of the United States military, as promised in Project 2025. So I think these moments create leaders. I don't necessarily, think that Gavin Newsom is the answer in 2028, but we'll see who floats to the top, because it's like you said, this is your opportunity to fight for us.
And you mentioned something that I've been saying is that there's a vacancy right now, like, and the bar is low. The bar is so low that Gavin Newsom, seeing that he's just like a political chameleon, we literally saw in the past 4 months, the fact that he stood up and fought, people say, finally, something. Okay, we know that you're like a sneaky oil salesman and you're a politician through and through, and I'm not using that as a compliment, but you're fighting, right? And so here's an opportunity for Democrats to get a spine. I think anyone who fights back in this moment, Allison, right? The Rubicon has been crossed because I got not only the receipts and the tweets and the YouTube posts, I also got the Substack articles. Go back and read me, folks. For years, I said that this guy, if he's elected again, he's not leaving office, and you should take him literally and seriously when he quoted Hitler right before the election in October and said, "I'm open to unleashing the National Guard and military against the quote enemy from within." As Allison said, he's only been president for 4.5 months, and this is nothing. The LAPD 2 days ago thanked thanked the organizers, the protesters, the community leaders for a peaceful protest. They thanked them, which is amazing because LAPD does not have the best relationship with Black and Brown communities. And last night they said hands off, and now they are literally lying to the American public, saying that it's insurrection, riot. It's all bullshit. Like I said before in the when we were talking at 1:30. When I accidentally pressed live when I thought I was going with you, and then I was like,
Sorry.
"There's 500 people," and then I just like audibled. But Los Angeles, for those who don't live in California, is huge. What's happening right now, if you see the map of LA, this is literally like a red dot. That's it. Most people in LA, you talk to your friends in LA, they're like, "Yeah, man, life is normal. I don't understand what they're talking about." And so, for something that's just a little red dot, he has deliberately exploited this and now brought 2,000 National Guard and 500 Marines. So, imagine, God forbid, if something else happens that actually requires, right, law enforcement presence, right? He's going to go ham. And think about, God forbid, what's going to happen if there's, oh, I don't know, looting and rioting as a result of, I don't know, oh, let's just say hurricanes and national disasters and catastrophes. Suppose there was another Katrina that might happen. I'm just throwing it out there. Who knows? This is a test case for authoritarianism, and they're I think perfecting it in LA, seeing what they can get away with, moving the Overton window in real time. National Guard, no one stopped us. Marines, no one stopped us. All right, let's see uh, an ICE member running down someone with an SUV. No one stopped us. Let's unleash the ICE and preschools and elementary schools. Oh, no one's stopping us. All right, let's have ICE arrest a union leader. Oh, no one's. Let's have ICE just accidentally arrest a federal officer. Let's have ICE arrest a
The
30-year-old
U.S.
grad student for
Marshal.
writing an op-ed. Right. This is what people aren't realizing, and so for me, I want Democrats at this moment. Like this to me, Allison is like, yo, this is the first time in 35 years, no, since 1965, that the National Guard was deployed. And it's being deployed against US citizens, right? So I want Democrats to come up and say, abolish ICE, right? I want Democrats to say fascist, authoritarian. I want Democrats to be on the streets. I think the Democrat that does that wins. Am
Yeah,
I
well,
am I
let's
too radical, Allison?
no, let's talk about why ICE was put together in the first place, right? We both know.
I remember.
I know you remember. Uh, if if the biggest threat from terrorism in the United States goes from being foreign terrorism to being domestic violent extremism and white supremacy, ICE should be being deployed against white supremacy and DVE. If ICE is not addressing the number one terrorist threat to the United States, which is domestic violence extremism, then they need to be disbanded. Their only job should be, I don't know, working for that 22-year-old kid, going out and finding.
Thomas Fugate.
But now instead of looking into and studying and combating domestic violent extremism, we're rewarding them. The Proud Boys have sued the Department of Justice for $100 million of your tax dollars. Do you think the Department of Justice will settle with them like they settled with Ashley Babbitt? Because I do.
Yeah.
It's now being held up as something to strive for instead of the number one terrorist threat to the United States of America. And that should be the only thing ICE is focused on. The threat to America isn't our immigrants. Immigration's not an invasion. It's how we exist in the first place as a country. To call immigration an invasion is antithetical to everything we founded this country on in the first place, because we didn't just spring up from the middle of Kansas. So I'm just I am with you. And if ICE, that should be the message. ICE's number one job should be to battle domestic violent extremism, like the Proud Boys, the Three Percenters, the Boogaloo Boys, the Oath Keepers, the neo Nazis, everyone that Southern Poverty Law Center says is the number one threat. Even the FBI, the super woke Marxist FBI, has for the last 5 years said our number one threat is domestic violence extremism, violent extremism. DVEs is what they call them, is what they call it. If that's not what they're focused on, then they don't have a reason to exist.
And furthermore, it's the intersection of white supremacists and radical right wing groups. And the alarm was rung in 2008 by the Homeland Security. There was, I think his name was Daryl Johnson. Yeah, I still have my memory. And that report was quashed thanks to pressure from Republicans because there was a 1 degree of separation between these groups and Republicans, and they thought it would make them look bad. Democrats under the Obama administration were feckless at that time, and they decided to play ball and be civil because apparently their only goal was to push through Obamacare. And so, even though Daryl Johnson was on it 17 years ago and saying, folks, we should pay attention to this, it was quashed. And because it deals with the right wing and Republicans, and because the Overton window shifts, and because we always have to be civil with the most uncivil, barbaric people who demand civility but give us cruelty, we have not heard about white supremacy and right wing terrorism, even though our flaming woke FBI for years has said that is the number one domestic terror threat in terms of violence, plots, and attacks against civilians. But instead, they're unleashing ICE against brown people. And I want to ask you about this, Allison, because you've been writing about it, because the precursor to all of this, as we warned, was first they're going to go after transgender people, then they're going to go after undocumented, then they're going after legal immigrants, and now they're going to unleash, well, authoritarianism. And the test case was actually a couple of months ago with Abrego Garcia and the kidnapping of all these brown folks without due process and sending them to a foreign gulag. I can't believe I just said that, but we've normalized that. You had two articles this week that I think are important, talking about how this criminal, corrupt administration lied to the people and is still lying about these innocent, legal brown immigrants who were literally shipped to their death in a foreign gulag.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, right here, right on Substack on the breakdown. I talked about this. Kind of went under the radar, but there were a bunch of documents unsealed in the Abrego Garcia case that showed what the government was doing, dicking around with discovery. Discovery, by the way, is a step on the ladder to contempt and sanctions. You have to go through discovery to get to contempt, and they were skirting it, and now we know while they were skirting it and while they were saying just trust us, we're doing something, we can't tell you about it. The court order was to tell us about it. That's the court order they defied. They refused to do that. And now we know why. They were cooking up a couple of criminal charges about a traffic stop in 2022 in Tennessee for Abrego Garcia, who, by the way, when he was pulled over, they called the local FBI affiliate under Joe Biden and said, "We got this guy," and they were like, "No, don't detain him. There's no crime here, and let him go." Now they're charging him with smuggling. But in that press conference, you'll remember Pam Bondi said, not necessarily Abrego Garcia, but these guys are traffickers, they're
Yep.
groomers, they're bringing, I mean, just hugely prejudicial. The things that we wished Merrick Garland could say about Donald Trump, but can't because it will get the case thrown out of court, we are seeing now happen on the other side. And so, not just that, but then a lot of people were like, oh, well, the whole discovery and contempt thing is over now because they brought him back. And I said, I don't think it is. And then that next day, Abrego Garcia's lawyers filed and said, this case is not over. You can't violate a court order and expect it to just go away once the courts rule in your favor, or once you think you've mooted it by bringing the guy back to US soil. Like Judge Boasberg said in the original Seacoat case, and he's trying to get criminal contempt proceedings going, but that is currently stayed by the DC Circuit Court of Appeals since April 18th, I think. But he pointed out this is settled law. The Supreme Court has said on multiple occasions, case citation, case citation, case citation, that even if my temporary restraining orders were vacated by the Supreme Court, you still had to follow them. You still have to follow a court order until they are no longer court orders, and you
Mm.
didn't. So we're going to start criminal contempt proceedings, and we'll see where that ends up. But the Abrego Garcia case, I don't think is over. But again, we have this particular oligarchical Supreme Court installed by billionaires and peopled with oligarchs who are willing to do their bidding. Um,
And you would think, thank you for that breakdown. I think it's very important. And Abrego Kilmar Garcia, I want to just, using that example, right? Democrats kept quiet. Democrats didn't want to be seen as weak on crime or immigration. Democrats voted for the Lake and Riley Act, right? Very few Democrats spoke about Amerigo Garcia. Let's be honest about it. There was one, Senator Van Hollen, who went to
Van
El Salvador.
Hollen, quiet, milk toast guy. Van Hollen became the Abrego Garcia hero.
Yeah, because Abrego Garcia is from Maryland. And he's a senator from Maryland. He goes and he went by himself. And I think I was talking to you at that time and a few others. And I said there should have been at least 10 Democratic senators. He went by himself, which was kind of risky, folks. And he said, I'm not going to leave until I get proof of life. Abrego Garcia got proof of life. There was pressure on the Trump administration. There were follow up questions from our weak, feckless corporate media. It was in the news. And as a result, now, Allison, when it comes to all the issues, Donald Trump is underwater on pretty much all across the board. He's negative double digits on Abrego Garcia. And I know in the last 2 days, they've been promoting these new CBS polls. Donald Trump, 54% of Americans support his immigration policy. However, what's buried under the lead is once people are told that non-criminal immigrants are being deported, it drastically drops. So Kilmer Garcia, that's an example of the cruelty of this administration. They've literally kidnapped innocent people and sent them out. Stephen Miller has completely ignored the Supreme Court, right? He can't invoke the Alien Enemies Act. He's lied about it, right? He has said there's an invasion. And the reason why I kept on this is like, this is going to be the pretext to come after all of us. And people are like, immigrants, brown people, who cares? Now, do you care, folks? If you don't care about LA, this is what's going to happen. And now, to make it even worse, Abrego Garcia, this ICE administration admitted they sent him an error. And because they're so weak, so arrogant, so cruel, so fickle, because they cannot ever admit that they made a mistake. Hell, you know what I would have done if I was the Trump administration? I would have thrown ICE under the bus, invited Abrego Garcia to the White House, had like a Coke with them and a taco, and said, "See, we've got your back." It would have been good politics, but they're also white supremacists, so they can't do that. So now that they're bringing Abrego Garcia back, they have. Can you tell them what the trumped up charges they've put against him now?
Oh, smuggling. And all of their documents are contradictory. One document says he was bringing people into the country. Another said he lied about being in Texas. A third says, oh, he told us he was coming from Texas. Um, Before I talk about a similar case that I know you'll remember, I just wanted to clarify when I say ICE doesn't have a reason to exist, I mean the agency, not the human people. So Doge, if you're listening, Tom Homan, I just want to make that clear. But you'll remember the Abu Ali case, Saudi Arabian, held in 2004 in the Bush administration during all the torture that was happening. And Judge Bates ordered discovery against the government to find out about his habeas claim to return him to the United States. And rather than go through that embarrassing discovery to talk about what was going on behind the curtains, with the government, they cooked up some charges and brought him back.
Yep.
And I know Professor Steve Vladek talked about this on his One First Substack, which makes me smarter than I am. Um, that could be a possibility in this case, and it turns out that it was. And we learned back in May 6th, I think ABC reported that they were investigating that 2022 traffic stop, and we were all like, oh, they're going to charge him and bring him back so they don't have to go through discovery. And the reason, and there's many reasons they don't want to go through discovery, but I think the main reason is they don't want to have to release the agreement that the government
Ah,
signed with Bukele, because I think there are exchanges there for MS-13 gang members that Bukele wants to silence, that we have in custody. You remember when Pam Bondi announced that big, huge press conference about the leader of the MS-13 gang and how we've indicted him, and yay, and good for us, and we're going, law and order. And then 2 days later, they dismissed the charges
yeah,
and sent him to
yeah,
El Salvador.
yeah.
I think that is spelled out in that agreement with Bukele, and not
There,
just that MS-13 gang member. And then they cut a deal. The Department of Justice cuts a deal with the Sinaloa cartel, allowing
there you go.
17 of their family members to come in. So law and order, or is this just a bunch of oligarchs, doing each other favors?
I think that quid pro quo will be revealed, and they don't want the quid quo pro to be revealed on both sides. Bukele doesn't want it, and the Trump administration doesn't want it. And the fact that, oh, we're perfectly fine with these drug traffickers coming. And speaking about drug traffickers, let's not forget, I try to keep receipts, folks. Donald Trump also pardoned, in addition to 1,600 violent insurrectionists, the creator of Silk Road.
The
Oh, you
fentanyl
know that.
guy.
Yeah, you know the guy who created literally the largest digital hub of human trafficking, drug trafficking, and weapons trafficking? Yeah, that guy. And the reason why he pardoned them because Silk Road was one of the big original marketplaces for crypto. So all these crypto bros, sociopaths, love that guy in order to win over the crypto bros and also make about what? How much money has he made? At least $300 million grifting off the meme coin. He, the law and order president, pardon the head of Silk Road, whose name I'm forgetting right now, and also, yeah, pardon 1,600 violent insurrectionists. This should be bigger news, but we have a media, we have Democrats, we have establishments, figures, Allison, who just they're just weak and they're complicit. And I can't stand it anymore. And I have no fidelity to any of these people. I think all these people should be shamed into action. I don't care about your intentions. I don't. Yeah, but if you're in a position of power and shaming you will force you to wake up and
Mhm.
fight, then I'm for it. Shame them. Ross Ulbricht. Thank you so much, Natasha. Thank you, Ross Ulbricht. Just go check up Ross Ulbricht, guys, and the pardon, which should have been big news, but no one cares because it's Trump. Uh, the pressure that works and the reason why I think there might be some success. I don't know if you saw that yesterday. The city of Glendale, I want to read this. After careful consideration, the city of Glendale has decided to end its agreement with U.S. Homeland Security, ICE, to house federal immigration detainees. This local decision reflects our core values: public safety, transparency, community trust. Why can't other blue cities do this?
I hope they follow suit. And I have to say, I think one of my biggest concerns about, we talk about how we want certain Democrats to fight more and to be out there more. I think the problem also is they run into the corporate media wall.
There you go.
There's a lot going on that a lot of Democrats are doing, and we just never get a chance to hear about it. And they have to break through by doing things like breaking the filibuster record, the floor speech of the Senate. They have to do things like create viral moments and like I said, the cream will rise to the top, but we're battling multiple fronts. We're battling a Supreme Court that has been bought. We're battling obviously a king in the White House. We're battling the richest man in the world, and they're battling, and people are listening to that, and me too, because I love my enemies fighting each other. I'm not going to shame anybody for taking joy in that. And we're battling a corporate media that refuses to get the right message out. So it's multiple fronts that we have to work against to see which leaders emerge in the future and starting now. Um, and it's like, unfortunately, we're in a. I think back to Childish Gambino's "This Is America"
Great
video.
video.
You have to go viral on social media in order to get your message out there. And so I think as soon as the old guard Democrats stop thumbing their nose and looking down at viral moments as negative or childish or whatever, they're going to continue to be muzzled because they can't get their message out. That's my biggest concern.
And I think you led into my final point where the leadership is going to come from the grassroots folks. It's done. Anything top down is not going to work. People don't believe it. People don't have faith in it. People don't trust it. Democrats spending millions of dollars slumming in luxury hotels for their retreats on how to talk to men. I'm not making that up. They spent millions of dollars, trying to create the next influencer. It's not going to work. It's going to be the rest of us on the ground, fighting for our communities and our families, using any platform and lever that we have to protect ourselves. And there's the 5051 protests that have worked, the Tesla takedown protests have worked, the buy-ins to corporations that haven't abandoned us, the buyouts from corporations that have abandoned us, the pressure on law firms, the pressure within. When you see these types of examples, Glendale said, "Yeah, f you." People running for office, like Allison said. Uh, Elon Musk's dropped more than $20 million on that Wisconsin Supreme Court race, and the liberal judge won by double digits. All these small races, right? Everything that can trip up a fascist regime is sand in the gears, right? It's all a victory, right? Death by a thousand cuts. And it's figurative death if you're watching ICE, figurative death by a thousand cuts. And I think people who are expecting for like a magical Obama to save the day. I never did when that's never going to work. Or the Democrats are going to come save the day, or AOC is going to come save the day. It's not going to work. It's going to be all of us doing small things every day over a long period of time, cracking and leaking and cracking and leaking. And these people, the one good news is they're so incompetent and they're so petty. We've already seen, Allison, that they are turning on themselves. I don't know if you've seen this delicious fight, Mark Levin versus Tucker. Elon kind of versus Trump, Loomer versus MTG. They're all
Bannon is, yeah.
Bannon versus Musk, Susan Wiles on the DL versus Pete Hegseth. These are petty mother effers, and it's only been 4.5 months. So I think we have to do everything we can within our power. And what you have to do, because people aren't watching corporate media, Jake Tapper yesterday was still promoting tweets about his book and Joe Biden's health, folks. That's what Jake Tapper was doing, and his ratings have gone down. Uh,
Look, look, man, you want to do the whole what is it, the original sin thing? Great. Take it to the History Channel. Okay, because it's not news. I think it's important maybe to cover. History is important. We learn our history, but it's history. It's academic. There anyway, you know my thoughts on all that. Like,
We all know. I was setting that up to say instead support people like Allison. Allison is a one woman shop, independent entrepreneur. Has set this up for the past several years. She has the breakdown on Substack. It's MuellerSheWrote.com. She has a podcast. There's also the Daily Beans podcast. Allison, shamelessly promote yourself and tell people how they can find you. What did I miss?
you didn't miss anything. Just look for Mueller She Wrote wherever you look for your social media. And please check out the Daily Beans if you haven't. And one last pitch, if I might, because if you know any National Guard members, Marines, or any ICE people who want to blow the whistle, whistleblower.aid.org
Mm.
is will they not only do this legally, but they do a whole wraparound service for protecting you and your identity and all that other stuff to legally blow the whistle on what you see. And if you aren't somebody who is in a position to blow the whistle, you can help those who are in a position to blow the whistle by going to whistleblower.aid.org/beans and donating to whistleblower aid. You know, these are our friends like Mark Zaid and all of these
Oh,
people
great. Yeah.
representing Miles Taylor, and they represented the person who led to Trump's first impeachment. And so check that out if you're able to. Just like if everybody here just gave like $2, it would like make a world of difference to the whistleblowers who want to come forward and do it anonymously and safely and legally with
Can you
whistleblower.
give the name of that website one more time?
Yeah, whistleblower.aid.org/beans.
If anyone can, because we're doing this on our phone, but if anyone can plop it into the chat, that'd be great. And we have about 2,500 people here, so that's $2. I'm an English major. That's $5,000. We folks who have joined us a bit late, I'm going to have this up, and Allison will have this up in an hour or so. I recommend watching the conversation. And also, I talked to Norm Ornstein earlier today. I'm going to have that conversation up as well. I think Norm and Allison back to back, you'll get a really good angle of how we came to this situation and if there's a way out. He also has a fantastic podcast that he co-hosts with David Rothkopf, and they also interviewed Miles Taylor. And Miles worked in the Trump administration and the first administration, and he wasn't originally anonymous. And because he was a whistleblower, didn't break any laws. Donald Trump signed an executive order accusing him of treason, and he's also gone after Chris Krebs, another first, Trump guy in the first administration was simply doing his job and said, I did my job. I did the audit of the election. The election was clean. And because he said the election was clean, the election in which Joe Biden won and Donald Trump lost, he now is being investigated for treason. If this is what they can do to Miles, if this is what they can do Krebs, if this is what they can do to Mike Pence, what are they going to do to me and Allison, folks? So stand up and fight. This has been the left hook. I am a fool, but not stupid. I have kept everything without a paywall. Everything is free, but I depend on the kindness of strangers. I got 3 kids. So if you're not a paid subscriber, I made it super cheap, $5 a month. Try to become a paid subscriber. But if you can't, for whatever reason, I understand times are tough. Share the content, get people informed. And a democracy needs to be informed. That's how you grow a collective resistance. So that's why I've kept no paywalls. It's the lefthook.substack.com. It's Mueller, She Wrote. Allison, thanks for jumping on at the last second. I really appreciate it. How's your cat? Was it your dog or your cat?
It was my cat. He keeps slipping out of his cast, and but it looks like the ortho took another look at it, and it looks like if he slips out of it again, he can leave it off. So I think he's going to be okay. But he's a Siamese. He's a menace, and but very loving. And I just recently adopted him. I went in to
Ah,
get a kitten, like give me a healthy, beautiful kitten, and I ended up with a 2-year-old with a cone and a cast who had been abandoned and hit by a car, and I fell in love with him, and I was like, all right, you're coming home with me.
this is why we're terrible capitalists. I took my cat for the first time to the vet yesterday. My cat is also kitten. I went in November to as a present for my 5-year-old daughter's birthday. I'm anti-pet, anti-cat. I got this little guy, and now this guy, for whatever reason, likes me the most. And yesterday he was limping, and some a community cat bit him. And so we took him, and they found all this pus and abscess, and they removed it and shaved him. But respect to my cat, man. They put a cone around him. This mother effer got out of the cone. And then I put the cone on him again today. And then an hour later, he got out of the cone. I'm like, you know what? Respect. And my wife, who's a doctor, said, he's on antibiotics, so let him be without the cone. So I don't know. Maybe I'm a bad cat owner. I should probably put that cone on him. But I saw him get out of it twice. And I'm like, I gotta respect that. I gotta respect the hustle. So we both got our cats. May our cats be healthy. Thank you so much, Allison, for your time. Everyone, thank you for listening. Please subscribe. Listen to Allison. Subscribe to this Left Hook. Be kind. Be empathetic. And please, oh please, don't be a fascist. Take care, Allison.
You too.